Above the pit, Midas concentrated and focused out in all directions. Connors had moved close to the force field that protected the section in the pit and placed his hands on the surface. The force wave from his bubble looked like an explosion that destroyed most of the pit. Connors used his power to keep the force field from collapsing. Ion had hidden behind a battered Eclipse, and both of them had survived the first strike from Midas. Midas then focused his own electrical blast at the giant and red benched him in a great flash. Ion was quick to become the hard target, throwing lightning bolts at Midas and moving quickly. The four that were red benched from the initial blast ran from the dugout and rushed the pit to see what was happening. Catch the lightning at the beginning and the end, Midas thought as he waited for the next bolt. Ion was throwing several bolts per second. Midas felt like he was trying to catch something too fast. Then he used the Omni power to charge his force bubble like a trap waiting for the next bolt. Ion threw a lightning bolt from himself to the force bubble and was almost knocked out from the feedback. Midas watched Ion as he hit the ground and fired a telekinetic bolt at him that blew a crater hundreds of feet deep into the pit and the earth below. Midas floated his force bubble to the unprotected second team rack. The bubble sealed around the rack and Midas took one of the heavy steel pins in his hand. The bubble then rotated and turned as he floated back to his wide-eyed team. "My first time holding one of these," Midas said as he placed the pin in the rack. "Darkspeed, you're up." Darkspeed blinked the other two pins back. The team stared at Midas in his black and gold armor. "Match goes to first team," Spurs yelled. Midas looked up at the silent crowd and at his silent team. "If you keep staring, I'm going to get a complex," he said to his teammates. Kodiak smiled at Connors and then looked to the rest of the crowd. "Haven't you ever seen an Omni before?" he yelled at the crowd and then started clapping. The rest of the stand started clapping and cheering. "Why didn't you tell us?" Darkspeed asked. "I didn't know until over vacation. Connors told me." Olympian stepped close and put his hand on Midas' shoulder. "I think you're forgetting the important thing here. My wingman is an Omni. How cool is that?" "Connors knew? How? Everyone's tried to find a way to," Bioforce was asking. "First team to your coach," Spurs yelled. Coach Smith pushed his way through the people surrounding Connors and Kodiak. "You've recruited an Omni. How?" Connors stood square to him and placed his hands on his shoulders. "I expect you to really use your own toothbrush and no powers. Ask me your questions when you're done." Dr. DeClute and Mr. McFarland moved in past Coach Smith. "Well, I suppose this was worth the suspense," Dr. DeClute said. "Wonderful, just wonderful. Is he any relation to Omni?" Mr. McFarland asked. "His parents are right behind you." Connors pointed to the Pringles, who were dumbfounded. "What just happened?" Mrs. Pringle asked. "Did you see what he did? Did you see?" Alex said quickly. "I thought there was only one Omni," Mr. Pringle asked. First team tried to move in close to their coach. Connors looked at those who wanted to ask him questions. "Darkspeed, get first team back to the dorm now." Connors then turned to Dr. DeClute and said, "Do me the favor of dealing with the parents. My team needs some talking to right now." "Sure, go," Dr. DeClute said. "Thanks. Tell everyone we'll be at dinner in 30 minutes and we'll skip combat training tonight." Connors flew up out of the crowd into the dorms. Virtuoso had just teleported first team back to their dorm. The team broke into a half circle that faced Midas. Midas felt like they were not looking at him as their teammate. "You're staring again," Midas said. "Did you become invulnerable?" Bioforce asked. "No, I'm not that kind of Omni." "What kind of Omni are you?" Darkspeed asked. "The kind that's on your team," Connors said as he opened the door. "Sit down." "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked. "I didn't tell anyone, not a single soul until I let Joseph know. It's a secret that big. He would have been vulnerable. Now he knows how to use his powers." "Why does he need to be part of a team? Isn't he his own team?" Bioforce asked. "Didn't we just go over this? He's not a healer or a leader or a hitter or a brain or a stealth. He's the same as he was before. His powers have just gotten bigger." "That's why you said not to read his mind," Virtuoso said. "Try now." Virtuoso looked at him and concentrated. "His mental shield is way too strong to get anything." "Really?" Midas said. "Yeah, it's like Coach's." "I told you it would come on," Connors said. "After you were able to stand up to caution." "That was a mean trick." Midas was talking about Connors saying his brother was in the pit. "All my mean tricks work. Get cleaned up and be on your best behavior in the dining room tonight. Tonight, you'll be meeting alphas from all over." They will all know that your team will be in New York in 6 years, and tonight is their first chance to meet you. Make a good first impression. I thought there would be 2 teams to take over the 15-member team they have now, Darkspeed asked. Whoever is second team will probably go with you. We know who that will be, Virtuoso said. Smith will be going with us to New York? Midas said with shock. Calm down. New York is a world away. I'll work on Smith before then. He'll be my special project. In fact, I've already started, Connor said with a smile. He's to clean our classroom. You knew when you made the bet that he would lose. You suckered him, she said with a smile. I knew my father liked you for a reason. Don't spread that around. We wouldn't want to revel in. Connors was cut off. Revel in another's downfall? Olympian said. No, coach, we wouldn't. Good. I'll see you in the dining room. Wear your best civilian clothes and arrive together. Can we get dressed up? I mean, like in formal wear? Virtuoso said with a smile. Sure, it's your night, all of you. Your first team because you're all the best at your specialty. That's why I picked you, Connor said as he walked out of the room. What do you mean formal? Darkspeed asked. Red carpet, baby. Get cleaned up and meet back here as fast as you can, Virtuoso said. The girls smiled at each other and ran off to their rooms. What does Jilly mean by red carpet? Olympian asked. It means she's dressing us because she's convinced we have no style, Midas said. How do you know that? Call it a guess. Connors arrived at dinner early to field questions about his team. Mr. McFarland was absolutely beaming when he found out the new Omni would have the power over matter and energy. Dr. DeClute had managed to explain what the designation Omni meant to the Pringles. So our boy was destined to be a superhero? Mr. Pringle asked. He sure was. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you sooner. I had to prepare him for all this, and I knew that once one person knew, everyone would know, Connor said. I'm just glad he learned how to control this thing without hurting someone. Is Alex special like him? Mrs. Pringle asked. Well, he's genetically different from Midas, and the chances of both of them being an Omni are astronomical. Besides, he'd have to be a little older to be checked. In the meantime, have you given any thought to the tutor I offered? I think we're going to take you up on that. Joseph's education has advanced so much while he's been here. Mrs. Pringle, we try to call all the alphas here by their handle whenever possible. I know everyone here is a superhero or a parent of someone who has special access. It's just a good practice. Certainly, Midas, Mrs. Pringle corrected. First team was the first to arrive of the 4 teams that would be there for dinner that night. The boys and girls of first team looked like they were going to the prom. The boys were dressed in black tuxedos and the girls wore evening gowns. Virtuoso has outdone herself, Connors thought as he saw the team enter. Kodiak saw them too and was the one who started the clapping again. The team felt funny being applauded for entering a room that they had come to for victory and defeat alike. Midas looked around at the girls in their perfect hair and the boys with their polished shoes. To him, Olympian was the only one who looked comfortable with the applause. He smiled big and made his way over to his brother Achilles. Darkspeed looked like someone unprepared to speak in public and retreated to wingman status with Olympian. The girls looked like social butterflies that fluttered over to Shogun and Dr. Noguchi. Midas was left to make a beeline to his parents. The Pringles were more than happy to speak to their son. The alpha teams in attendance didn't let the young team remain in their comfort zone for long. The older teams started to make rounds and introduce themselves to younger ones, who were trying to deal with the attention. Darkspeed noticed how the other leaders spoke to him as an equal. They spoke to him about things he would face and challenges that were coming his way. He noted none of them talked down to him. It was like they were giving advice to a new member of the club. To them, he already was a leader of an alpha team. The girls tried to move as a group as they made their way around the room. She made her way over to the Pringles and spoke to them about their family. Were you tutored by someone from the HU? Mrs. Pringle asked. No, I wasn't. My parents sent me to a private school to learn how to fit in, she answered. Why do you ask? Mrs. Pringle went on to explain their concerns that Alex might hurt someone. He likes to fight and plays rough so much, Mrs. Pringle said. She spoke to her a little longer and then made her way to her father. Did Coach Connors ever tell you who taught him how to fight so well? She asked her father. He once told me that Omni taught him to fight, Shogun answered. Well, he fights very well, even better than you. Who taught Omni to fight?